There's a secret hiding in the halls of Las Vegas, and it's not about luck or long odds, it's about the people. There's this thing about Vegas, about the old Vegas, that the movies never quite got right. They showed you the glitz and the glam, the high rollers and tuxedos, the shimmering showgirls. But that was just the thin, shiny veneer of it all. The real city, the beating heart of it, was something else entirely. It was a grease-stained apron, a pack of Marlboros tucked into a shirt pocket, and a pair of worn-in shoes from a 12-hour shift on the casino floor. It was a place where the sun was almost an afterthought, and the day was measured in shifts, not hours. The real Vegas was a waitress named Betty who'd been slinging coffee at the same counter for 30 years and could tell your life story by the way you held your cup. It was a dealer, a guy named Sal, who'd been on the floor since '78 and had a handshake that felt like it came from another era. He could look at a gambler, a face he'd never seen before, and know in a second whether they were an escapee from a suburban life or a true gambler with the fire in their eyes. This city was built on those kinds of relationships. You spent more time with your coworkers than your own family. You'd share tragedies, holidays, and 1,000 hushed secrets over shift drinks at a dive bar with sticky floors. This wasn't just a job. It was a community. It was a tribe. It was the last honest-to-God American melting pot. A place where a kid from Cleveland and a guy from Juarez could stand side by side, dealing cards or mixing drinks, and make a life for themselves. And in this world, this pre-digital world, the casinos weren't just businesses. They were living, breathing entities. They had a personality, a rhythm, a soul. You could feel the hum of the old slot machines, the mechanical whir, the clatter of a payout, and it was a comforting sound. The air smelled of stale cigarette smoke, cheap perfume, and the faint metallic scent of money. It felt human. The people who ran these places, the old-school pit bosses and casino managers, they understood that. They knew that the real jackpot wasn't just a win at the craps table. It was creating an experience, a sense of belonging that made people want to come back. They were in the people business, not just the gambling business. It was messy, inefficient, and beautiful. It was the American dream on life support but still breathing. But then, things started to change. It wasn't a sudden cataclysm. It was a quiet, almost imperceptible shift, like the low hum of a new machine being plugged in far down a hallway. The first thing you noticed was a small kiosk, a touchscreen where you could order a drink, a little glowing rectangle where a real person used to be. The bosses called it convenience. The workers called it the first wave. The real unsettling part came when the new slot machines rolled in. They weren't just bigger or flashier, they were smarter. Frank, a guy who dealt blackjack for 45 years, told me about them. He said they were like a ghost in the machine. They didn't just take your money and pay you out. They tracked everything. They logged your bets, your losses, how fast you played, how long you stayed. They had cameras that could recognize your face. They were learning your habits, your triggers, your weaknesses, and they didn't have a soul. They didn't smile when you won, or offer a word of comfort when you lost. They just watched. It was the first time the casino felt like it was watching the players instead of playing with them. And that was the shift. That was the moment the old Vegas started to die. When the people on the casino floor, the bartenders, the dealers, the cocktail waitresses, started to feel like they weren't the heart of the business anymore, but just overhead. They were just part of a ledger, a line item to be optimized, reduced, or, if possible, eliminated. The new bosses, the young MBAs in suits from out of town, they didn't talk about customer loyalty. They talked about data analytics. They didn't see a community. They saw a machine, and they looked at that machine, and they saw 1,000 tiny inefficiencies, a dealer's salary, a bartender's tip, a waitress's health insurance, and they saw a path to replace those inefficiencies with something cold, sterile, and predictable. The hum of that new machine was getting louder, and it was starting to drown out the laughter and the chatter. It was the sound of a city starting to forget itself. It's one thing to see a change from the outside, to hear the hum of a new machine and wonder what it means. It's another thing entirely to be standing in the middle of the room when that machine turns on and points at you. Take Maria, for example. She wasn't a dealer or a pit boss. She was a cocktail waitress, and she worked for a large corporation that owns a couple of the mega resorts on the Strip. She'd been at it for 25 years. Maria was the kind of waitress who could read your mood before you even knew it yourself. She knew the regulars' stories, knew their kids' names, and could remember that a guy who only came once a year liked his drink with a twist of lemon, not a lime. Her job wasn't just about delivering drinks, it was about delivering a feeling, a little slice of human connection in a city built on the promise of fantasy. Then, the tablets arrived. These little glowing screens on every table and at every chair. At first, they were just an option. A quirky little gadget. The bosses sold it as streamlining the service, a way to get drinks to the customers faster. But slowly, the option became the default. Customers, already conditioned by Amazon and Grubhub, started ordering with a few taps. Maria's job, which had been about personality and charm, became a glorified delivery service. She'd see an order pop up on her screen and go get it. The conversations faded, the tips dropped. People stopped looking her in the eye and started staring at a glowing piece of plastic. And the worst part, she said, was that the customers seemed fine with it. They were used to it. The tech had already conditioned them to value convenience over a human touch. She went from being Maria, the kind face and the warm smile, to being the person who brought the drink. And that's a soul-crushing kind of demotion. But this isn't just about tablets. This is about a philosophy. A cold, calculated decision made in boardrooms far from the desert heat. I talked to a gaming analyst, a guy who works for one of the big financial firms on Wall Street. His language was clinical, almost alien. He talked about labor arbitrage, operational efficiencies, and maximizing revenue per square foot. He saw a dealer's salary and benefits not as a living wage for a person, but as a cost center. He saw a cocktail waitress's tips not as a reward for service, but as an unpredictable variable. He told me, with the detached certitude of a surgeon, that it was just good business. And that's the real story, isn't it? The American dream has always been tied to the dignity of work, to the idea that you show up, you put in the time, and you get a fair shake. But now, that dream is being redefined by people who don't care about a fair shake. They care about a predictable profit margin. The corporate titans and the Silicon Valley investors, they aren't interested in the messy, inefficient business of people. They want predictable, scalable, emotionless systems. They want algorithms instead of relationships. They want spreadsheets instead of stories. And they found in Vegas the perfect test case. Because Vegas is a city of extremes. It's always pushed the boundaries, from engineering to entertainment. It was the perfect place to see if you could build a better, cheaper, more efficient casino. And they did. They built it with facial recognition software to spot cheaters and high rollers. They built it with automated card shufflers that never get tired and never make a mistake. They built it with self-serve betting kiosks that never need a break. They built it with AI concierges and robotic bartenders. The promise was always, this will free up the people to do more important work. But for every new piece of tech, a job disappeared. A person's livelihood, their purpose, their identity, all gone, replaced by a line of code. What they didn't factor in was that they were taking more than just a job away from people like Maria and Frank. They were taking away the very soul of the city, the trust, the personal touch, the human fallibility that made Vegas what it was. And for a city built on the promise of a big payoff, the truth is that a new, more sinister kind of gamble is being played out. And the house always wins. So, where does a city go when it starts to lose its soul? When the flesh and blood people who built it, who gave it its rhythm and its character, are quietly shown the door. The job losses aren't just a grim statistic. They're a transformation. The people aren't just disappearing. They're being pushed out, forced to find a new path in a city that's forgotten who they are. You see it in the eyes of an old dealer working as a rideshare driver now. You hear it in the voice of a cocktail waitress who had to go back to community college to learn how to code. This isn't the end of a story. It's the beginning of a different one. A story about a city trying to reinvent itself. About the people trying to survive in its wake. The new Vegas, it's a technological wonder. A gleaming monument to efficiency. But it's empty. The laughter sounds a little more forced. The smiles a little thinner. Because the people who made it feel real are gone. And what's left is a hollowed-out shell. A ghost of its former self. And this isn't just a story about Las Vegas. The story of Vegas is the story of America. Think about it. We've seen this before, haven't we? The Rust Belt towns where the factories closed and the people were left behind. The farmers displaced by corporate agriculture. The mom and pop shops pushed out by big box stores. This isn't a new phenomenon. It's a fundamental part of the American experience. The endless, relentless pursuit of progress and profit, regardless of the human cost. Vegas, with its bright lights and its grand stage, just happens to be a perfect mirror for the rest of us. It shows us, in sharp, stark relief, what happens when we trade human connection for cold, hard data. We've become a culture that celebrates efficiency above all else. We celebrate the apps that get us a taxi faster, the self-checkout kiosks that save us a minute in line, the online stores that deliver a package in a day. We love the convenience, but we've never stopped to ask ourselves what we're giving up in return. We're giving up the conversations, the smiles, the small, seemingly insignificant human interactions that knit a community together. We're exchanging our relationships for transactions. We are, in effect, firing ourselves. The people of Vegas, the ones who are quietly being let go, they're just the canaries in the coal mine. Their story is a warning. It's a glimpse of a future where we're all reduced to consumers and data points, where the only thing that matters is the bottom line, and the human element is just another variable to be optimized out of existence. The quiet, almost invisible layoffs in Las Vegas aren't just about a city losing its workers. They're about a country losing its way. And the evidence is clear. We traded soul for spreadsheets. And now, the bill is coming due. There are certain moments when a city's story shifts. The story of Vegas has always been about risk, about a bet you can't afford to lose. But the house's new bet isn't on the turn of a card or the roll of a die. It's on a future without us. It's on the cold, beautiful logic of machines. And while the lights on the strip still shine, and the music still blares, a silence is growing. It's the silence of a city that's forgotten its own song, that's traded the warm, human chaos of its past for a polished, sterile efficiency. We walked into the casinos of our own lives and started to play a game we didn't understand, a game where the currency wasn't chips, but our own connection to each other. We bought into the promise of ease and convenience, and we never saw the fine print, that the price of that ease was our humanity. The Vegas of the past, the one built on handshakes and knowing glances, is gone. It's been replaced by a city that serves an algorithm, not a person. And if we aren't careful, the story of Vegas will become the story of all of us. The evidence is clear. We've been quietly firing ourselves. If this story meant something to you, let me know your thoughts in the comments. What's your Vegas story? Subscribing lets us keep digging into the stories that matter. Thanks for listening.